Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 68 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Paris. Today's guest is Luis Congdon from Thriving Launch, and this is somebody that I've come to know over the past couple years through podcasting. And one of the things that I found out about Luis was his backstory, and it is a really incredible story. And once I heard it, I asked him if he would come onto the show for one of our Thought Leader Thursdays so that he can share with all of you his incredible story and pay close attention to the mindset shift that changed everything for Luis. All right, let's jump right into the interview. Luis, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast. How you doing today?
Thank you, Jeremy. I am honored to be here today.
Now, as I understand it, you are not a veteran, but you are a thought leader. I think of you as a thought leader in the industry. And I met you through Podcaster's Secret Weapon. And this is just an amazing group that you've built. But I don't think that a lot of people out there know your full story. And I think that it would really speak to a lot of my audience, a lot of veterans out there, people who know veterans who might be having some challenges with homelessness. I think that your story would really shed some light on what their mindset could and should be.
Thank you. I'm really honored that you feel that way about me, because my heart goes out to anybody who's a veteran, anybody who's decided to lay their lives down to help other people have the certain safeties and comforts that we do here in the United States, but in any country. Anybody who's a veteran, my heart goes out to them. I have nothing but total respect and honor them. And so for me, it's a great honor to be here. And to be able to provide something for veterans. So, first off, thank you so much for having me here. And next thing to say is, yeah, I've been through quite the gamut of traumas. I've had my own share of PTSD, and hopefully my story and some of what I've gone through and learned can help anybody who's listening be more inspired or have more love in their life, or whatever it is that they're needing. Hopefully my story can give something to them, because for me, it is a total honor and privilege to be here.
Well, that is excellent, Luis. And I think the best place to start here is all the way at the beginning. As I understand it, you were not born in this country. Is that correct?
No, so I was actually born in Medellin, Colombia, in South America, third world country. I was born in 1983, which is the height of the cocaine cartel. Most of the world's cocaine was coming from Medellin, specifically the city where I was born. If anybody's ever heard of this movie or TV show that's out currently, Narcos, it's about Pablo Escobar and all the people that were drug traffickers in Medellin specifically. That's where I'm from, and I actually grew up and was born and raised up until the age of 8 years old, about maybe a couple miles away from where Pablo Escobar himself was born, to give you an idea. So when I was born into the world and came into the world in 1983 in Medellin, Colombia specifically, things were quite tumultuous in that country. There was a lot of murder. Drugs were running rampant. My mom was 25 years old. I was the third child born to her at the age of 25. And so for me, when I came into this world, there was a lot of chaos happening around me. My dad was gone, and my mom was by herself with 3 children and no job, really not much income. And she was addicted to alcohol, cocaine, and other drugs that you don't really see in other parts of the world except there. And that is the beginning of my story. And then for the next 5 years, I lived with a very abusive mother who would leave all day long and lock the doors. There was over the windows, there's bars, so we couldn't get out the windows. I was also a little kid, so I wouldn't even really know how to escape. And the door was locked. 2 doors were actually locked, so there was really no way to get out. And then my mom would come home at night and would do drugs and have sex with different people in front of me, maybe give me some drugs or try to get me to do different things. And I'm a little kid. There's really not a whole lot that you can fight. I actually have memories of her giving me alcohol and laughing and thinking it was hilarious when I got drunk as a little child.
Wow.
And I'm not knowing what's going on. So that's the beginning of my life. And then at the age of 5 years old, my mother was actually murdered because of drug debts. And I was left homeless with an uncle. So an uncle did take me in, but he himself was homeless and didn't have a home, didn't have a job. But it was kind of an interesting situation because in Colombia, it's really common for people to have live-in maids. But because of the time period, or I'm not sure exactly why it worked out this way, but he was able to work out deals with different people where he would go and live in their home and be a live-in maid and be able to have his child there. Those jobs didn't work out very long. They didn't pay very well, if they paid at all. I don't really know, but I just know that we were very poor. I remember at one point, him and I were leaving this house that he had been working at, and I'm a little kid, and I'm saying, "Hey, let's take the bus. I don't want to walk. Can we take the bus somewhere?" And my uncle says, "We don't have money for the bus." That's just to give you an
Wow.
idea of how poor we were. And then, being a little kid, I said, "Well, then let's just call a taxi." Now this story's been relayed back to me from my uncle, so I remember it. I don't remember saying those things, but I remember being that poor. And then at some point, through very kind of complicated turn of events, I was taken away from my uncle, put into an orphanage, to really actually just tell you guys, because I want to really open up and share my story, and I have a little bit more time to do that today. What ended up happening is my sister was pulled away from my uncle because my uncle was taking care of my sister and myself while he was homeless. And I have no idea how he was doing that, but she was pulled away by my biological father, and I was left with my uncle. And then at some point, my aunt, so my dad's sister, other side of the family. So there's my dad's side of the family, my mom's, and my homeless uncle on my mom's side of the family was taking care of me. And at some point, from the other side of the family, an aunt comes and says, "Would Luis like to go live with his sister? His dad is willing to take him." And I say, "Yes, of course." So she picks me up in her car. I wave goodbye to my uncle, like, "Hey, I'm going to see my sister. I'm so excited." He takes off to another city where there's more work. It's a bigger city. It's a safer city, and it's far away from Medellin. So he leaves, and my aunt actually takes me to an orphanage. Little did he know that I was never going to go meet my father. I was never going to go see my sister. I was actually being taken to an orphanage, told to go play with some children. And I guess while I was there, my dad came in, signed the paperwork to have me adopted. And about 2 weeks later, my uncle in another city, somehow, crazy how things work, somehow he was reading the newspaper, and there was a picture of me in the newspaper. I still have the cutout of the image, actually, and I can
Wow.
send it to you if you want it for your post.
Oh, that'd be
But
great.
there's an image of me saying, "The little boy, Luis Carlos Ochoa Rango, is up for adoption at this orphanage, and he's going to be adopted." My uncle just about about had a heart attack. But he bussed back 12 hours through the jungle, came back to Medellin, came to the orphanage. Now, I don't know this is happening. I'm off playing, but he's talking to the people at the orphanage and saying, "Hey, that's my kid, and he's not supposed to be here. You need to give him back to me." And the head of the orphanage responds and says, "Well, you're homeless. You don't have a bank account. You're not married. And two, you don't have legal rights over this child. His father has already signed the documents for him to be adopted, so there's nothing we can do for you." My
Wow.
uncle somehow weaseled his way. I mean, maybe not the right words, but my uncle somehow convinced them that it would be okay if him and I saw each other. So they said, "Okay, on two conditions. One is you can't tell him what's happening, and you cannot make any attempts to, make it so he can reach you in the future." Well, love doesn't always listen to those things, because he did he did hold true to one of his promises, which was he wasn't going to tell me what was happening. And I'm a naive 7-year-old who's been uneducated, who's been living in the streets. And for me, it's like for the first time in my life, I have a stable place that I'm sleeping at. I have friends who I don't have to beat up. I'm not getting bullied. People like me. I have fresh food in front of me every day. I have a community. And I have a roof over my head for the first time that I don't think I'm going to leave. Now, I'm not saying I'm thinking this way as a child, but there's a certain comfort that a child goes, oh, this is nice. So that was my perspective. This is nice. I'm a place with friends. So my uncle never told me what was happening, but he did come and visit me a few times. And in one of the visits, he actually brought me a little fanny pack with a wallet inside. And inside that wallet was a little card that he wrote on the back of an address to a pharmacy. And so I left Colombia after receiving these gifts from him, came to the United States. I didn't speak English. I had no concept of what the planet was because I'd never been on an airplane. I didn't really understand how to look at a globe. I didn't understand any of this stuff. I didn't even really know what English was. And I decided to come to the United States because I heard that Superman lived here. So funny story is that this orphanage, funny little story here is that this orphanage, they allow the kids to decide where they want to live. So essentially, if you want to adopt a child from this orphanage, you say, yeah, I want to adopt. And if there's a specific type of child or whatever, they match you, right? And so I got basically two different sets of parents who wanted to adopt me. There was parents in France, there was parents in the United States, and I wanted to go to France. France is where most of the kids go. I knew that would be the place where I'd be able to stay with my friends and go and visit people and be like, oh, you're from that orphanage, me too, and oh, you're from Medellin, cool. So that's what I wanted. But there was two things about that I didn't like is, or one really, is that they had a daughter. And I didn't like the idea of betraying my sister and taking on another sister. So I was really perplexed, It was really troubling me. And I'm about to I'm laying in my bed, trying to fall asleep, tossing around. And my best friend, Julio, he's sleeping in the bed next to me. And he jumps into the bed with me. And he goes, hey, I want to help you make your decision about where to live. And I want to tell you that Superman lives in America. And I love Superman. I'm 7 years old. I actually thought people could fly back then. And I thought Superman was a real guy. So that's it. I woke up the next morning and just confidently walked up to the lady and I said, I want to live in America. No idea where this place is. So people come and adopt me. We get on an airplane. The plane moves about 10 feet or so. And I look at my new parents and I say to them in Spanish, is this America? And they say, no, a little bit longer. The plane takes off and we're flying just a little bit. And I look down and I point and I'm like, is that America? And my dad's like, no, a little bit longer. And about 10 minutes later, I looked down and I said, is that America? And my dad said, no, a little bit longer. So I just kind of decided to be quiet. But it was quite traumatic to come to the United States, not knowing anybody, this new set of parents, really beautiful, wonderful people. But Seattle, Washington in the year 1991, George Bush Sr. was in office. Now, political beliefs aside, the Bush family doesn't have this history of being very friendly with immigrants, and so there weren't a lot of immigrants in Seattle, Washington, especially, and there weren't a lot of Latinos specifically. So when I came here, it was a very difficult time for me. It was confusing. It was traumatic. I really didn't even know it was traumatic to me, but I've had this whole history behind me, and I'm coming into this culture where my new parents didn't really speak Spanish, and my new family didn't speak Spanish. And the first school that I went to, nobody in the whole school understood me. The first bus ride that I ever took from school, I rode it all the way to the bus depot, and somehow the school bus driver figured out whose kid I was and called my parents, and they had to come pick me up. And from there on, my mom had to wait on the street corner, and the bus would pull up and she would wave to me and I'd get out. But I had no way of communicating with the world. So it was a fairly scary and traumatic place. I wasn't used to having my own bedroom. I wasn't used to having a mom. And I would wake up in cold sweats screaming, or just hot, just dripping sweat and screaming. And my parents would have to wake me up out of my screaming and remind me that I was okay. I had this deep fear that they were going to return me to the orphanage, that I wasn't a good enough child. And I had a lot of problems with my adopted mom for many years because I wasn't used to having a woman in my life, especially a woman who cared about me and loved me, which she did. And so it confused the heck out of me. My parents didn't beat me, where my mom and my uncle both beat me. And that's how they taught me. So and I'm saying this stuff because I think that it really relates to veterans, and that if you're a veteran, or if you're a veteran of war or a veteran of some sort of difficulty, there's all this trauma that surrounds you. And how the heck do we get over that?
Yeah. Yeah. That was your low point early on in your childhood, or did you come to more obstacles in the future?
Just a few years ago, it kind of came back full circle. I was 29 years old, and my relationship had ended. A dream job had ended. My bank account was depleting very quickly. I went and stayed and slept on a friend's couch. I didn't have any money. I just couldn't keep a job for the life of me. Maybe it has to do with the fact that I had like this dream job, and then like, what do you do from there once you have this amazing job? So I was sleeping on my friend's couch. I was incredibly scared to tell people how I was doing, where I was at. So I wouldn't reach out to people really. And not only that, I in a lot of ways I feel that I got to this point where I'm sleeping on the couch. Then I slept in my car in October and November in Seattle, Washington, which it's cold.
Wow.
It's very hard. It's hard to sleep in a sedan during this time of year. And then in December, sleeping in a park in Seattle, Washington, and how scary that is to not just to sleep in a park, but how scary it is to feel like you don't have any power anymore in the world, and that maybe you and your God or your connection is gone, like you're not being protected and no one's there to support you, and you're embarrassed of where you're at, so you don't want to talk about it. For me, that was the ultimate low that I'd ever reached, and I got fired from several different jobs, and I just felt very depressed. So
Yeah. And once you hit there too, it's like you get that feeling like you're not worth what you were before. And so now when you're going and you're trying to get a new job, it's you're carrying yourself completely different, and you don't have the confidence in yourself, and it shows. And so it makes finding that next job even harder too.
You asked me about, was that it? I had a really difficult time during my teenage years, but around 18 or 19, I really shifted. And before I left high school, I was a star athlete. I graduated with nearly a 4.0. I did running start and went to college and graduated from running start with a 3.7 GPA, went to a private school and got a scholarship. I got all sorts of awards while I was in school. I did all sorts of retreats and helped all sorts of homeless people and people around the world. I spent my Christmases and holidays helping people who were needy. I didn't take vacations. For some reason, I wanted to keep helping. I got really involved with different religions, became a real leader, and even landed this job that I should have had a PhD for, but I just had a bachelor's degree. So looking at that and then going to this other spectrum where now I don't have a way that I can contribute to the world. I'm ashamed, where before I was really proud and I was like this all-star. So you think about, for me, I think about somebody who, maybe decided to go to the military, and that was a big decision. That was awesome, and they were celebrated, or whatever it is, they did something awesome. I'm just using that because it's your particular people that I'm speaking to, but maybe you've done something awesome in your life, or you look back on it, on different things, and you succeeded in a certain way, but then all of a sudden things aren't like that anymore, and your life feels like it's falling apart, and you're ashamed. That's the way that I felt, incredibly ashamed. And when I reflected and compared my past to my present, it made it even worse. And so after a while, things got so bad that I had to start asking myself, okay, what's wrong with me? But it was like an empowering question, like, what is wrong with me and what can I do to change this? I've been afraid. I've been deeply, deeply afraid of being homeless again in my life. I've been deeply afraid of being abandoned and not having the people around me who I love in my life. And this is the culmination of that fear, and I'm living the worst of it. And is there a way for me to be empowered so that I can change this? I've overcome so much in my life. Is it possible that I can overcome this? And those questions they started to create momentum and power, because at some point I started waking up and I said, okay, I'm clear that I don't really want to work jobs that I don't like. I'm clear that it's exhausting to apply to anywhere from 3 to 10 jobs a day and do that day in and day out and go to all sorts of interviews and not really get hired, or get hired and fired because I'm not inspired. And all of that rhymed.
Yeah.
But I started asking these questions. Is there a way out? And is there a way, something in my education, I've learned something to get out of this? Because if I was a powerful person at some point in my life, that means it's still available to me and I can still access that guy. And the little kid who lost his mother at such a young age and then was homeless and then was adopted, that kid that somehow has persevered despite everything, has persevered, just meaning that he woke up every day. That's perseverance. He overcame just because he woke up and didn't kill himself or didn't hurt somebody dramatically, or maybe he did, but somehow this kid is here today. And there's got to be a great level of strength and power, right? And he's been trained. This kid has been educated. I was a wrestler. I was an all-star wrestler. I was one of the first people to get an MVP award for my wrestling team, because they didn't give those awards because there really wasn't an MVP. I won most inspirational for wrestling. I was on a team that had not enough people. And anybody who came immediately was varsity. And I was one of the first kids to almost make it to state in my school with a team with like 2 or 3 kids short of an actual full team. So
Impressive.
There's something strong. Yeah, there's something strong in this kid. There's something impressive about this kid. He's got something, and I got to tap back into that. So I just went into myself and I started asking questions. Well, what does that guy do that's differently? And what are some of the teachers around me? So I started Googling on YouTube, like have confidence, be strong, manifest your life, the secret. I didn't care. I was like looking up Bible quotes, and I started looking for ways to be inspired. And one of the things that touched me the most was, well, what I have right now is a result of my thoughts. It's not just a result of my past and the trauma and everything else that I've suffered. Yes. And right now I am burning in the fire of my fears. And it's horrible to be here, but maybe there's an opportunity to burn them up so there's just ash left, and there isn't this kind of like fear, but it stays there like static in a radio in the background that is just there. And you choose to ignore it just because like it's not bad enough. Now it's become so bad, I have to change the channel. And changing that channel for me, the first thing that I did is I'm sleeping in a park in November, waking up and I don't have a tent or anything. I just have a sleeping bag, and I wake up and there's like people in front of me. It's an odd experience. And I just wake up, I close my eyes, and I think, what would it be like to be free? What does that look like? What does it look like to have a different life experience than the one that I currently have? And I just started thinking about that. So, well, it looks like I'm making $10,000 a month. Oh my God, what would that be like? And I start thinking about it. And every day from then on, I started listening to some sort of 20, 30-minute motivational thing. And then I would get up after that, kind of shake it off, and I would close my eyes for a moment. I'd imagine, all right, I just made 10 grand. And people are applauding me, and I'm a leader again, and I feel great, and I'm having a better life than I've ever had, and I have my own business, and I have a beautiful partner with me, and I'm being supported, and life is great. And I would just ask myself, walk from one end of the block to the other as if that was real. Like, how does that guy stand? How does that guy think? How does he feel? Just play pretend, just from one corner of the block to the other, because that's all I could handle. Like, I couldn't handle trying to sustain that, because after a while you're pretending something that you start doubting. So just do, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, but can we make it to the end of the block? And eventually I made it to the end of the block, and I walked the other corner, right? And eventually I could walk the whole block, believing this false idea that I was making 10 grand a month. Now, for some people that might scare them. The idea, though, is to choose something that excited me. And for me, that was exciting. That was beyond my comfort zone, but it didn't matter if I made 10 grand. What mattered is that I felt different. That's all I cared about, because at the end of the day, for me, how I feel is more important than the results I'm having in my life. There's this great question that I'm asked a lot when I go on podcasts. What does success look like for you? And my answer, success looks like me having love regardless of what's happening in my life, that I feel love. And that's what that exercise was for
Oh,
me,
I
is
love that.
can I somehow feel love or feel excitement or feel happiness? And I believe in some ways that when we start practicing certain thoughts, we start noticing different things. You know, you see a car, you learn a new word, and all of a sudden you're noticing that car or that word. And I say it's the same thing if you practice anything with your thoughts. So eventually I started noticing different opportunities and taking action on them. And I ended up getting a scholarship for $6,000 to start my own business. Completely changed my life.
Wow.
And it was a completely free scholarship. I don't owe any money back to the company. They gave me some education. And right now my business runs off a laptop and it's some headphones and a little education that I purchased and a microphone. That is my business, and I will tell you that $6,000 business grant that was given to me, it is my current business. It is what runs my whole business today.
That's incredible. And your business, let's talk for a second about where you have come to now, because I was in the Facebook group this morning, the Podcaster's Secret Weapon group, and I noticed that you're up over 1,500 podcasters in that group now.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit, just very quickly, what else you have going on.
Yeah, definitely. I want to say something about how I grew that group and how I grew the business. When I started, I had no money. I didn't have education as an entrepreneur. I had spent my whole life serving homeless people. So to make a leap from serving homeless people on a 9 to 5 job or even more hours to running your own business where you're solely responsible on your income and you have to make money, it was a hard, scary leap. One of the biggest, hardest things that I've done in my life, and yet most empowering. And I've done that primarily through free methods. And the reason why this is important to me is because no matter where you're at, somehow there's the support out there to help you get where you're at. Because I was building my business before I got that $6,000 loan. I used to have an old busted up laptop and just a headset that I borrowed from a friend. And I would do podcast interviews. I would drive to the university nearby. I would type in their password and like close this door shut and hold it so no one would come in. And I would do interviews so that I had internet. And I, even though I'm sleeping in a park, I still had a laptop. Maybe I'm more fortunate than other people in that situation, but I had something, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, I started using free social media channels to grow a business. And that's how I've grown that group, is I've grown it through free methods. I'm just barely starting to get into paid ads and paid traffic and all that stuff, but free has been the starting point, and that's all I had. And at first you could look at it, oh, I don't have enough, but that's all I had. And I had a dream, I had a vision, and I had an immense amount of support around me. I didn't build this by myself. I'm really lucky that there was a website that said, hey, we have grants for small business owners, and if you're low income and a small business owner, write us. And I wrote them, and I started Googling and searching, and thank God that there's these kinds of supports. So that would be my other thing for people, is no matter where you're at, if you have a dream or a vision, find someone in your life that supports you and inspires you and keeps your head on straight. Because I will tell you, at that low point in my life, I wanted to die. And if it wasn't for a few people in my life, I don't know if I would be here today. So, we talk so much about me and I did it, but no success is founded on an individual. It's founded on community. It's founded on the fans. It's founded on customers. It's a team, regardless. Even if you're kind of doing it by yourself, somehow there's a bunch of other working parts. And I really want to acknowledge that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you do a really good job of providing value in the group. And I think that that's one of the keys, is you didn't have money to give to get people to help you with things, but you provided value to everybody else that was in the group that was looking for help in any way that they can get, even if you weren't specializing in that. Like, I was in your group early on, and I remember I needed somebody to help me with editing podcasts. And you yourself didn't say, oh, well, I can help you edit some podcasts. You said, hey, I connected with this other guy and he edits podcasts and he's amazing. And you put me in contact with him, and you were able to provide that value. And I think that really says a lot about, what it is you're doing, is you're constantly providing value to other people, and you can get away with out spending a lot of money when you are able to build up that foundation of support from all of these other people who really know who you are as a person and they want to help you succeed.
And everybody has some sort of value, because when I first started, I had no idea what my value was. I saw Jeremy needed some help, and I knew someone else that could help him. I linked him up. Last I looked, I did over 350 calls, because I have this calendar. I have this little calendar, and it comes with a URL that goes to a website, and people click in there and put all their info. But I have a track record of how many appointments I've made, and last time I looked was over 350 appointments in 1 year. When I first started my business, I spoke to over 350 people for at least 20 minutes apiece. And that was because anybody who wanted help, I was like, yeah, schedule a call with me. Let's chat. And I had no idea if I could provide value, but I just knew that caring about people matters. And I knew that that matter would eventually turn into something that matters for me and matters for other people, like something physical. Like there wouldn't just be intangibles. There would actually be physical matter that would somehow translate into something valuable for everybody involved. And for me, that's all I had when I first started, is I could provide value. I had ideas. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to meet people. But whatever gift anybody has, I just encourage you to give that away as if it was your religion, as if it's the best possible thing that you can give to people. Going back to your question about what I have going on right now, we've released 2 different digital courses. So we have a course that teaches people how to podcast. Then we have another course that teaches people how to use social media completely free to build a business and to make money online. You don't even need a website or complicated systems. So that program was the program I wished was around when I first started. I'm also working on doing more speaking gigs, engagements. There's a lot of stuff on my plate, and I'm really excited. We just released the Thriving Launch podcast. We relaunched it. Thriving Launch podcast is going up on iTunes probably tomorrow or the next day, but we just launched it on our website, and it's live now. It's a 5-day-a-week show that just helps inspire people, gives them tips on inspiration as well as business tips and education in business, and just an education overall, trying to give somebody a holistic experience of life or tips in as many ways that I wish somebody would have delivered to them. So we're doing that through the show, and that's what I'm up to these days.
That's outstanding. And I want to be very aware of your time. I know you've got a lot of other appointments set for today. So I just wanted to have you wrap this up with maybe one last piece of advice. If there's somebody out there who might be struggling with finances right now, or somebody who knows somebody else who might be homeless, what advice would you give to them?
Regardless of what challenge you have in your life, I think that you have some incredible resources available to you in this moment. That first resource that I'd say to you is, no matter where you're at in your life, you made it here. And it might not be pretty. It might have had a lot of upsets, but I'm sure there's some wins. There's some hurdles that you've overcome. So one is you've made it this far, and there's something incredible about doing that, because living isn't easy. This rapper 50 Cent says something great. He says, dying is easy, but living is hard. And essentially, if you've made it this far, you've overcome something incredible. Like, just to get here, to get to the point where you're in a body, a human body, is just to make it there is an incredible feat. And then to make it to wherever you're at today, you've done something. So there's a certain level of resilience, power, strength that you have that is, to me, is really commendable, just because you're here and you're sharing this beautiful but also really challenging journey of being a human being on this planet. So that right there, to me, says something great about you, especially if you've listened to this episode this far in. Then the next thing that you have available to you is there's people around you, and there's people around you that care about you. And I don't care how bad of a person you've been or where you're at, there's probably somebody. I'm certain there's somebody in your life that believes in you and cares about you. And you may not know them right now, maybe, or maybe you do, but there's somebody. And if you search in your life, I'm sure that they're presently in your life somehow. And all it takes is you reaching out and have a conversation with them. And if they're not, it's very easy. We're so interconnected nowadays that you also have an ability to go into social media and connect with people. But there are people that care about you and people that really want you to succeed. people that I've never met donated $6,000 to me to a cause for me to build a business. Originally, I started a business that I wanted to help married couples have success in their marriage. I was, in my late 20s at the time. Like, there's no telling that business was going to be successful. A lot of businesses fail, and I didn't have on paper what it took to have a successful business, but somebody believed in me and donated $6,000 to me and allowed me to have a thriving business that is thriving launch right now. So there's resources and there's people around you, and they're probably in your life. And there's a lot of them that aren't in your life, and you have to get out there and you have to talk to somebody. Maybe it's a counselor, your mom, your dad, somebody that either served with you or somebody at a restaurant or a hotel. But I'm just saying that they're everywhere, and they're sprinkled in odd places sometimes. But if you just start accepting, there's people that care about me and my mission, and there are people, and I'm going to look for signs that they're there. Any little sign, I'm going to accept it. I'm going to take it. That'll create great power. And the next thing too is that if you can start creating some sort of feeling in your body and some sort of new belief system around money or wherever you're at in your life, if you can just do that thing where you start at a certain corner of the block and you imagine what would it be like if, and just feel it and ask yourself, what would this person walk like? What would this person breathe like? And I'm going to walk 2-3 steps being that person, and I'm going to leave it alone. That's it. I'm just going to do that. There's no need to go crazy about it. I'm going to do that. And then tomorrow I'm going to do it again. And maybe I'll go one more step extra, or maybe I'll go one step less, but I'm going to do it. And every day I'm going to entertain the possibility that there's something different available to me. And if you utilize those 3 different things, I believe that your life can have a dramatic shift. And you know what? It might not even look dramatically different, but your experience of it could completely change. Because I can never go back and change that my mom was murdered. I can't go back and change that I was adopted or that I was homeless. But what I was able to change somehow kind of in my 20s is I was able to change the idea that the loss of my mom was a loss, or that being adopted was the worst thing that happened, or that even my father, who put me in the orphanage, that was even a betrayal. Because just 2 months ago I was visiting him, and he's one of my best friends on the planet now. And the story that I have about that now, I want to share that with you guys if I can, Jeremy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the story that I have around my childhood is, first I want to say that I suffered a lot because of what happened. And I have great empathy for people that have suffered a lot because of what's happened. And a lot of things that happen to us, we don't have power. I didn't have power as a child, and maybe whatever is going on in your life, you don't have power to change it. But what I do know for me personally, and this is just from my story, so I can only speak from myself, from my heart, is that at some point I was suffering so much because of my past that it was getting in the way of me having a future that looked any different. And I started to ask myself, is there a different story that I could tell myself? Because this is just a story. It's just the story that something bad happened to me. I mean, is it possible that this is a story? Is there a way that I can interpret this differently? Because we look at people who have done amazing things in their lives, and they just have different stories about things that have happened. So is it possible for me to do the same thing? So I started to consider, okay, what if the loss of my mother was actually her gift? So then I started to think, well, what if my mother chose to die because she loved me so much that she was willing to be killed so that she could become an angel and be with me for the rest of my life, so that she wouldn't abuse me anymore, and so she wouldn't be the horrible person that she was. I mean, in the physical body, my mom was a terrible person, but when she died, maybe that was her gift to me. Maybe that was her way of saying, I'm sorry I can't love you, and I'm sorry that I don't have control over this, and so I'm choosing to leave this earth in my physical body so I can become your angel and love you the way that my spirit does. And from then on, once I started to consider that, I started having different conversations with my mom, like, wow, I love you so much, thank you. And then what if her gift to me and being homeless created this level of resilience and strength that maybe other people don't have, or a certain maturity, because I've seen some of the worst of life? And what if being adopted coming to the U.S. was this incredible gift, leaving this really impoverished country at one of the worst times that Colombia has ever experienced. And I got to leave that country, and I got to come to a married couple living in Seattle, Washington, this metropolis of education. I mean, we have Boeing, we have Microsoft, we've got University of Washington. What if I was given the greatest amount of wealth, and it was because of my mom's decision? And what if my dad also played a part in that? And what if unconsciously he signed the papers for me to be adopted, and he lied to my uncle, and all these different things happened, and I was placed in an orphanage? But what if he also was an angel? What if he was doing the best that a father knew how to do, even though he didn't know what to do? Because I'll tell you, when I met my dad, I was 18 years old. I went back to Colombia. I met him for the first time. I thought when I was going to meet him, now, I didn't go back to meet him. I went to go see my sister and be with my uncle. But my sister said, you should meet my dad. You should meet our dad. So I went to go meet him, and I thought, I'm going to punch this guy really hard in the stomach and say, screw you, dude. That's it, and we're even, and I don't ever want to talk to you, and I would leave. That's the vision I had. That's the vision that we're shown in television. That's the vision that we're given by the world, is that I would have been justified in doing that. And damn right, I probably would have been. But when I met him, this barrel of a man comes running towards me, grabs me, picks me up. I'm 18 years old. I'm a pretty strong guy at that time. I'm doing wrestling and stuff. I hadn't graduated high school yet. And picks me up and squeezes me, and tears are just pouring out of his eyes. I'd never seen a man cry like this. And he is apologizing profusely. And what I felt is, this is a man going from his 20s to a man in his 40s who is now a grown man. And here's a man who was a child when he had his first kid, his second, and his third kid, in a time when Colombia was very tumultuous. And now he's an adult, and we're both adults, And I get to be connected with this person. Not only that, I don't have to hold anger against him. And whenever I feel anger towards somebody, I feel anger. It doesn't matter if I'm angry at you, I still feel angry. Like, I get to feel that feeling too. So I get to live with that toxin, and I got to let go of that. And now my dad's one of my best friends, and he's like, oh my God, man, you helped me become adopted. So now I have two amazing families. I can go down to Colombia if I want. I can come back to the United States. I'm more of a world citizen, and it's thanks to you and my mom. And those were some of the worst things that the world told me happened to me. And yet in my mind now, they're some of the best things I could imagine ever happening.
Wow. And you were just able to come to that because you were able to flip that script and decide for yourself, this is the reality that I want to believe is true.
Yeah, there's a really great movie. It's called Don Juan DeMarco with Johnny Depp. And there's another movie called The Life of Pi. And both of these movies share a common theme, is there's these people, the movie Life of Pi, or the book, I think it's like a New York Times bestselling book too as well. But both these people are telling their stories, and both these people at some point get stopped in their stories by somebody, and the person says, well, that doesn't sound like the real version of the story. And both people respond, look, if you want me to respond with this dark, cold reality that you have in mind, that's fine. Or I can look at the story this way, and then I get to have something that's very empowering and beautiful. Which story do you prefer?
Love it.
And that changes everything. And for me, my story, I mean, which story do you prefer, Jeremy, or which story do you guys prefer listening? Do you prefer the story where I'm a poor little child who got hit by a drug-addicted mother who then, abused me heavily and exposed me to all sorts of negative stuff and was murdered, and poor me, and then I was adopted, and then my adopted parents got divorced, and poor me again, and then I was homeless as an adult, and man, I'm just such a victim to life? Or is it more beautiful that this woman who gave birth to me loved me so much that she was willing to let go of herself and completely let go and give me an opportunity to come to the United States and have two loving parents. And this man that I'd never met but was my father did want to love me, but he was trying his best. And he's not to blame, but he's somebody to thank. Like, which story would you prefer?
Yeah, that is so powerful. Love it. So, Luis, for the people that are out there that are listening to your story, and they're hearing what you're saying, and they're relating to you, and they want to maybe see what it is you're doing out there in the world, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah, definitely. If you want to connect with me, I'd be honored to hear from you. Regardless of, if this has touched you in any kind of way, feel free to go over to thrivinglaunch.com, and you're welcome to send me a personal message there. You're welcome to opt in to receive my inspiring emails or listen to the podcast. But if you feel inspired to get in touch with me, I make it a point to try to read every single email possible and respond to everybody possible. And I'd be honored to hear from you. But any way that you want to stay in touch with me, you can go to thrivinglaunch.com, and there's links to all my social media, and any way that I can support you in your journey. I'd be honored to know you, or I'd be honored to have a fingerprint on your success. Jeremy and the rest of you, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real honor to be here, and a real blessing to know that I got to share my story, and hopefully it's touched somebody out there.
Well, it definitely touched me. So I can speak for myself, but also for the listeners. I guarantee you that people have been listening and loving hearing what this story was all about, and hearing what you are all about. And I thank you once again for coming on the show and sharing that with my audience.
Honored. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Have a fantastic day.
All right. I'll see you inside the group. So what do you guys think? You like that episode? Anybody else have a little bit of moisture going on in their face a little bit? A little tearing up a little bit maybe? Just me? It's not me? I mean, it's not me. My eyes are totally dry. I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, this was such a good story that Luis came and shared with us, and I'm very thankful that he agreed to come on the show. I hope that all of you got something out of this, and I would love for you to tell me about it. Tell me whether you liked it. Tell me if you didn't. If you want to get connected with Luis, let me know. I can make that happen. Tweet at me. I'm at ParisJ13. I would love to hear your thoughts about this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Tune in tomorrow for episode 69.